Hello, and welcome to What Am I Doing, the Dungeons & Dragons podcast where one experienced dungeon master and one failed scriptwriter discuss D&D topics. My name is Kinsey, and my ridiculously inadequate pod partner is McCaffery. Hello, Lewis.
Hello, can I see this is the second time we're recording this?
It is.
A little bit, and you still start laughing, and I don't know why.
Because I keep reading what's coming up, and I can't stop. I just can't stop myself. You've recently moved into the sex dungeon. I mean the flat.
Let's call it what it is, the sex dungeon. It's beautiful, and there's quite a few more swings than I expected.
Well, yes, some of them are for pleasure.
Yeah.
Some of them are for pain. Could say it's a trap.
Beautiful.
Could say it's a trap.
Okay. Oh,
Which
is that a hint?
Yeah. Which leads us on to this week's topic, traps.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Seeing as you've moved in,
Yep.
Let's break the ceremonial glass, should we say?
Okay.
Let's squash this beef. I don't know what else.
Let's trigger this trap.
Yes.
Yep.
Do you want to go for it?
Of course. So let's get to it.
Okay, so today's episode is traps. What makes for good trapping? Are we using them wrong? Are traps entertaining? And do people hate them? Lewis,
Yes.
you just got back from an adventure and you're about to walk into your house when you hear your partner getting really passionate.
Oh.
I'm leaving a gap there so I can add some horrible sounds to the edit. Is there a trap? What am I doing?
Oh, I don't know. My first thought is to go in with a bloody 12-gauge shotgun, if that's the
In a D&D setting?
Yeah, obviously.
You're the trap.
Yeah. No, I think the best way to do this situation is, as we've seen in your Black Shores campaign, we take a book... or take a page out of Liliana's book. Liliana was a Air Genasi rogue who had a habit of crawling up walls and peeping into people's windows while they enjoyed themselves.
And by enjoying themselves, we do mean making passionate noises upstairs.
Yeah, we do. So I think you do a bit of that. You climb up the walls, climb around the house until you find a window where you just sit for the next hours. Oh, yeah.
I wish she was here to defend herself. She would defend herself in the wrong. You would look into the window, see that they're pleasuring themselves in their own house, and then you ask them what they're doing if they look back at you.
If they notice me and ask me what am I doing, I'd say, what's wrong? I've not done anything. And this is a true story.
This is true.
Happened.
Okay, so first question.
Okay.
How do DMs introduce traps for the first time? Got any recommendations? What would you do? What did you do?
I think it depends what you're running. If you're running just a normal module, let's say the Lost Mine of Fandelver, because we mentioned that in the combat episode, I think, there's the moment right at the start where, not necessarily a trap, but an ambush, I suppose you can consider them the same thing, where it's a simple check where you get closer, and as soon as you get close enough, you can do a perception check. If you see that there's danger, then you're aware of what the trap is. If not, then you go into it blind and you will probably trigger it. I think a lot of traps can be very simple and that new DMs shouldn't necessarily worry about them, because a trap can be something like a dugout pit with spikes at the bottom that's covered, let's say, in a forest.
I think the cliche one is like there's a stepping mechanism and the next one is a pit, like a pit that is revealed, right, when you kind of jump, step forward.
Pretty sure I've used that in a campaign I ran for you, but thank you.
Yeah, I see multiple Facebook groups where people ask about traps, and hopefully they're listening. Yeah. And some people always put up this one kind of like 3D 90-degree angled trap, pitfall trap. People love using.
There are very common ones like that. There are also, it depends. Traps can be very simple and still serve a purpose, but you can also have like multi-layered traps, like in the D&D movie, how the paladin, is explaining this really intricate bridge in the Underdark, and then the sorcerer just steps on one thing and destroys the whole thing.
Yeah,
like,
done for.
It can be complicated, but it can be simple.
Okay, but how would you introduce it?
Into the into a session, again, it depends, let's say how simple. If it's a simple one...
New players, new DM, you've asked recommendation.
For both, I would simply keep them simple to start with and just have, let's say, like the classic spikefall trap or people like tripwire or something. And I would just I'd keep aware of everyone's passive perception. If they have said that they want to look out for traps, then they can roll survival checks. And depending on how difficult or easy you want this trap to be to spot, for example, let's say standard 10 to say it's easy. And if they succeed, great. It's just a case of saying, right, you see a tripwire or you hear some noises from some creatures, or even you see, let's say, a pile of leaves that looks out of place. But if they don't see it, then it's just a case of if they walk into it, they trigger the trap, and you know, let the consequences just play out.
I think a good trick, like kind of start a trap, is something where it won't kill them. You know, like a tripwire where they step on it, it then I can't remember the typical name for it. And, you know, it raises them up, hanging upside down for a tree. Something simple where there's no danger, but it's something as simple as that where they go, okay, so there's more to be wary of than just combat people, you know. Yeah. I think that's a good starter way to...
Yeah. Even one like that, let's say if you did that and found them hanging upside down and then they got attacked by 2 or 3 goblins. So not stressful, but it raises the intensity.
Exactly. Introducing people into the scenarios, you know, not to come as in for that session, but just to get new players going. Yeah. And with more experience players, you can start mixing it up with, you know, like sigils and hexes and things that are way more aligned to like how their class specifically could compete with it.
I think a good one as well for new players and experiences. Let's say you're going through a cave in and you step on a pressure plate or trigger a tripwire and it causes a little cave-in collapse.
The Indiana Jones.
Yeah, or even just it causes a little collapse in the cave and separates the party into two groups and just...
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Fun. Is there creativity in trap usage?
Oh, definitely. I think even the simple ones can have a little bit, but it's when you get to the more complicated ones. Like you said, if you've got sigils that you have to press in the right order, or multiple levers, or even like, let's say, like gunpowder that's kind of being ignited, and if it gets to the end, there's a huge cache of it that could blow you all up.
Yeah,
there can definitely be creativity, and it's just depending. It is like with D&D, it's literally just limited by your imagination. But I think when trying to make really complicated traps, the number one thing is to just make sure it's solvable, and that players will figure out how to solve it. You don't just throw in a million things and then when they don't get it and die or fail, say, well, you should have got that, all you had to do is this.
Like creating any session, like the hardest part is to make sure that whatever you're doing can be completed, can be solved, can be achieved.
You're not working against the players.
Exactly, just like they shouldn't be against you. Exactly. You don't want to put something in and go, well, that was obvious. You really got to think about how people can approach it. And if they step way out of that and somehow still approach it, then that's incredible.
Exactly. And the thing is, traps don't always have to be like solved. Players can spend 2 hours on a trap and then fail or run out of time, and that's fine as long as you didn't make it impossible and there was no way that they could have succeeded.
If it's going to be stupidly difficult, at least have an alternative option. Yeah. You know, for them to get by in some way. Okay, do you look outside of D&D for inspiration for traps? I thought that was quite a good one.
Yeah, I think you definitely can do.
People just think medieval kind of high fantasy.
Yeah, you can think that with almost anything, though. It's... Like, the first thing that comes to mind are the two things, like you said, the Indiana Jones boulder. You could say, like I said, in Star Wars, it's not necessarily a trap, like a triggering thing, but you know, when they get to Cloud City, go to set out for dinner, and Vader is waiting for them, and then
there's an ambush.
And they're all ambushed. Yeah. It's like, to the point where they have to submit. You can definitely take inspiration from different sources.
I actually think sometimes, for instance, the Cloud City one, I think if you can make that work within your session rather than just throwing it in, that's one thing. Yeah. And two, if you can get it working to the point that people go, oh, I've seen this somewhere, and they know, then actually when we're all playing D&D, right, things like that people quite likely will know or have seen, so they actually kind of like the reference.
And the thing is, with even if, let's say, it's something like that, but it's a trap that you have to solve, or a puzzle that's integrated with a trap, and you take it from somewhere online, or a movie, or a TV show, or a book, or whatever it is, and let's say one of your players gets it straight away, or gets it eventually, and they figure it out because they know which trap you're thinking of, that's not also a bad thing. I think a lot of DMs might, because you know how long we can spend working on a puzzle or a trap.
They want to make something new no one's ever thought of.
Yeah, and then when a player solves it straight away, it can be a bit it can be a bit frustrating, but just remember that is a good thing, because it gives players a level of satisfaction that you just can't plan for.
And if it can be completed, then you can definitely improve on it and use it again in another way, and make it a little bit harder next time, but at least you know it is possible.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Okay. Might be a hard one. Yes, back to the sex dungeon. What's your ideal trap? What have you experienced a trap where you go, this is really good, like, I wish I'd thought of this, or you've got one in mind, and I'm probably going to regret asking, that you're ready to use on a group. Maybe you already have before, or it was a scenario you had on your server where, people were like, God, this was good fun. Which is what is key, really. Getting the fun out of it.
I think in terms of an ideal trap, not necessarily. I think the best kind of traps are ones that you can tell they've thought about. Don't get me wrong, like I said, I think every player that has played or has some level of experience with Dungeons and Dragons knows that you will encounter traps somewhere, whether it's a cave, dungeon, or even in a tavern.
You hope so, really.
Yeah, it can be in someone's house, like a booby-trapped journal, for example.
Yeah.
But I think those are great. There's nothing wrong with them. But I think when let's say it's an ambush or it's a ancient tomb that you accidentally trigger a trap for something, when it's clearly thought out and there's a background behind it, so like who set this trap, why did they set it, rather than just, oh, here's a hole in the ground with spikes in it. It's like, who's done this? I think when it's clear that
there's a bit of lore behind it, rather than for the sake of it.
Exactly. I think that's the same with a lot of things, though. Like, it has to have a purpose. Ones I'm going to use or want to use, not necessarily. I've been trying to, because obviously I'm working or every now and then working on a campaign. I kind of want to involve some kind of trap that tricks the players into sending themselves to like another plane or something. Whether it's a trap or whether it's someone lies, there's like a puzzle that convinces them. I suppose you can kind of think of it as a trap, and they have to fight their way back or something.
Yeah.
Like, I know we've done our Baldur's Gate episodes for next week.
Yes, we have got Baldur's Gate episodes next week, guys.
In Sorcerer's Sundries, there's a lamp that you can find, and if you interact with it, it'll instantly teleport you inside, and a genie will say, oh, thanks, and it'll bugger off.
Okay.
Because something has to exist inside the lamp, so it's kind of a trap like that.
That's cool.
What about you? Have you got any traps that you can tell me?
No, yeah, I thought of one yesterday for our campaign, but didn't use it.
Okay.
But I did actually tell you it. And it's weird. It's a long-term trap. I would love the idea that someone could come across a Vorpal sword, very early level. Like most DMs listen to this if they are like screaming like, "Why would you give anyone a Vorpal sword?" Yeah, but the Vorpal sword, you pick it up, and everyone in combat that you fight specifically then has a chance of killing you on like beheading you on a nat 20 like you do them, but only the player holding the sword. So it really is a curse, every time.
Like I said, I just love how
it's a long-term trap.
To be fair, I hate it and I love it at the same time. I still think that you should if you give one of us a Vorpal sword, definitely give a sentient snail a Vorpal sword, an immortal snail, and have it
following you.
Chasing us around the Black Trails.
Okay, so today's adventure is sadly coming to a close, but we are back again next next week with the topic, if I eat 8 spiders a year in my sleep, do mermaids eat 8 crabs? And other crustaceanal questions. And as always, thank you for tuning in, and if you'd like to join in on the D&D action or just support this show, then please head over to our server Patreon, Adventures in Alandra, which can also be found in today's podcast description. And join us on Instagram and Twitter at WhatAmIDND. Before we say our names goodbye, just as Lewis quickly broke out the news earlier, we next week we have 3 episodes coming out, Monday, Thursday and Sunday, each one focusing on a different act of Baldur's Gate 3. We are late to the show, yes we are.
Oh yes.
And we're always late to the party. And there was no
party?
No good side to that. I just needed to state what we do. Okay, I've been Connor Kinsey.
I've been Lewis McCaffery.
Good day.
Adios.